Hi there, welcome to C programming tutorial. This tutorial is actually continuation of the previous tutorials where I explained the variables, constants, data types, and operators. I will basically add on to it. There are certain things that I could not mention about the variables because of the limited amount of time that the YouTube allows for the videos. You know, they have to be under 10 minutes. So I guess I need to cover those. So in this tutorial, I'll be talking more about some more stuff about variables. Okay, so let's get started. If you haven't watched the previous videos, please do so. You can see a link on the screen right now, which basically takes you to the playlist, the entire playlist, which actually is the collection of all the tutorials in this series. Anyway, let's get started. So the variables. First thing is that the variables, as you know, so far the way I created variables were like, int x. Okay, we said character C. But in algebra, if you have, usually this is how we do. We basically use single characters to represent the variable names or the variables. But and if you write something like xy in algebra, it basically kind of means x multiplied by y. It's the same as x multiplied by y in variable, but in algebra. But here in programming languages, most of the time, basically you can have a variable, a single variable called xy. And this variable xy is different from x because it has a different name, and it's just one single variable. It's not like two variables being multiplied by together. So if you have an int y and then you declare an int xy, it's not gonna make it two different. It's not like this thing is basically a product of x and y. It's not. It's a different, totally different variable. A variable in its own. Because of that, it's a very good idea, instead of naming the variables as x, y, and z, and a, and b, and c, and stuff like that, most of the time you're supposed to basically name the variables with the purpose that they are doing. Like, for example, if you're trying to do a count or something, you name it as count, int count, just like that. And if the character is like first character, so you name it as first character. What you could do is, see how there are two words here, first character, and they kind of mix up. What you could do is, to keep them separate, is use underscore if you want to. The other thing you could do is, you could say first char. That way you could differentiate between them, between the two words as well. Separate the words separate them from each other. Now in C variables are case sensitive. In other words, character x and character capital X, they are two different variables. They are not the same variables. So remember that. The other thing that I need to mention is basically, only place where you can, in C, only place you can declare the variables is basically right after this braces. You cannot declare you cannot say, okay, you cannot have a statement after that, x is equal to x plus count, and then you declare int abc. You cannot do that. That's in C, it is not allowed. In C++ it is allowed, but in C it's not allowed. But since we are using C++ compiler, it will compile, it won't give you any error. But in C it's not allowed. But it's a very good thing actually. If you write your variables close to where they are being used, it's a good programming practice. But if you compile that program in a C compiler, it will give you errors. So if you are doing C programming, don't do that. Just declare everything in the upfront, in the beginning of the functions, right after the braces, before writing any statement. That's the one thing. The other thing was, over here, so far all the variables that I'm declaring, they are all in separate lines. You could declare multiple variables in the same line. For example, you could say int m comma n comma p. So this makes all m, n, and p as integers. Okay, you could say float real number, comma rational number. Okay, that's you could do that. This is perfectly okay. This declares both of them as floating point numbers, variables, because of this float sign, float variable type. The other thing is that you can also declare and initialize variables at the same time. For example, here, like we said int x, we could say int x equals 20. This is perfectly great. What it does is it declares the variable x and it assigns the value of 20 to it. So instead of saying int x and then later on somewhere here saying x is equal to 20, you could do this also. And it's a very good programming practice to initialize variables. It's supposed to be a good programming practice. If you don't initialize the variable up to this point here, what are the values in those variables? You have already declared x, you know. You already declared mn. You've already declared x here, the character x. Actually, this is an error. We cannot declare the same variable with two different types. First character, first underscore character. All these things. All these variables, they are all declared. They exist at this point. What are their values? It's totally undefined. The value is garbage. If you'll print something, it will print some value. But those values would be any values. We don't know what they are. So you have to initialize the variables before you start using them. It's very important, because otherwise it doesn't make sense, because you are using the value which basically is totally stupid. It just doesn't exist. So I guess these are some things that I remembered about the variables and stuff that I kind of missed in the previous lectures, and I thought I should basically mention this. Thank you for watching. Keep watching all the videos. There are many videos before this video, and there are many videos after this video, so make sure you watch all of them and become an expert in C programming. Thank you so much. I appreciate you watching the videos.